Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk, Israel National Radio. Today is the 16th day of the month of Menachem Av, the Consoling Father, 5774. It is August 12th, 2014. This week, the third Torah portion of the book of Devarim, Parshat Ekev. We are in the second of the 7 Sabbaths of consolation. You might have noticed that the music is back. Music is back. Yesterday was the 15th day of the month of Av. Period of mourning for the Holy Temple is behind us. And not only that, but there's a certain switch that takes place on a mystical level in the fabric of the universe. From the 15th day of the month of Av, the 15th, of course, yesterday, which is actually I'll call it a minor holiday. It's actually, even today, a minor holiday, though in the time of the Holy Temple, it is celebrated as a major holiday. Not one of the 3 pilgrimage festivals, but a serious holiday, the 15th day of Av, and it is associated with the revelation of the deepest level of closeness between Israel and her God. It is manifest on various levels, but on the mystical level, there's something about the radiance of Hashem's blessing reaching the world, and how it is manifest, and how things begin to turn around for the better in a tangible, palpable way from the 15th day of the month of Av, so that actually we could say that the process leading up to the High Holy Days really begins now. 15th day of Av really it begins a new period of time that is now just the vestibule outside the hall of the High Holy Days. That's really where we are right now. And as we've discussed, I think that we all feel that the consensus in Israel is definitely growing towards transforming the time of mourning for the temple into a time for rebuilding. That certainly is what we've been trying to emphasize. And as we reported to you last week on Tisha B'Av, thank God we were able to be on the Temple Mount this year on Tisha B'Av. It was the first time in 4 years that it was open for Jews. Lately, if you've been following the Facebook postings of the Temple Institute lately, you see the news is that the police seem to be more conciliatory towards the Jews. Is that a good word, Yitzchak? They seem to be more accommodating. They seem to be, on the one hand, filtering the aggressors and the agitators. They seem to be limiting access of the Temple Mount to those aged people that they think are not going to be provocateurs. But on the other hand, same nonsense is still going on. A pregnant woman was arrested the other day with her children on the suspicion that she was reading Psalms from her smartphone, and the person that was photographing her, that happened to be kneeling down on one knee to get a better view, was arrested on suspicion of prostration, which is a forbidden act for a Jew.
Federal crime.
So that stuff isn't changing, and I am disturbed to report, to remind you that the other day there was a feature in the news where the Prime Minister Netanyahu was actually giving a press conference that related to a number of issues, and in that press conference he mentioned that he has no intention whatsoever of changing the status quo on the Temple Mount, which of course is in Jordan's favor. And tomorrow, this Wednesday, here in Israel, in Jerusalem, in the Knesset, there is going to be yet another meeting of the Knesset Interior Committee's special session chaired by Knesset member Miri Regev, who's the chairperson of the Interior Committee. And that committee's purpose in convening tomorrow is going to be to discuss, summarize what happened on the Temple Mount on the 9th of Av, and ostensibly it's to discuss preparations for allowing Jews access on the Temple Mount during the period of the holidays of Tishrei. In other words, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and the days of Sukkot. So we'll see exactly where that goes. But in any event, it is certainly on the calendar these weeks of the month of Av are a time of reconciliation between Israel and God, time of reconciliation of humanity, and how apropos that we are in the middle of the beginning of a ceasefire. Is it holding? Isn't it holding? We haven't been any rockets on Israel for a while now, since 2 days. Reports as of this moment, as we go to Mike, is that the gaps between the parties are very wide. And I don't know what to say about all of that, because our concern actually is that what have we accomplished exactly? And this is a very big question that is bandied about by the various pundits here in Israel. Who won? Who won this war? What have we accomplished exactly? What do you have to say about that, Yitzchak?
I have to say that our prime minister seems to be very wed to the status quo, or the status quo ante. In this case, as far as the Temple Mount, we know that he's wed to a status quo which is really an affront to democratic principles, of course, and certainly an affront to Jewish values, but he's wed to that status quo for whatever political reasons he has. And here in Gaza, he seems to be trying to push for a return to what was before the rocket fire, which means a temporary period of quiet until the next round. And of course, the nation was so united behind the war efforts, and people now are, from the left and the right here, are somewhat miffed and disappointed that the prime minister and the defense minister seem to have ended the
campaign.
The campaign before anything enough was accomplished to actually change the situation. And many people, of course, are calling for the re-entry of the IDF into Gaza, and for Israel to retake it and to properly destroy Hamas, because they're an entity that if you don't crush them completely, they will return, because there's nothing to hold them back. You know, they don't care for the people that they claim to represent, so they have no limitations whatsoever. They can just re-entrench and try to rebuild up their capabilities.
We are hearing from some voices, whether members of Knesset or ministers or military voices, telling us that the operation is not necessarily over at all. We're hearing that it's going to take a long time. So, to paraphrase T.S. Eliot, has the operation ended not with a bang but a whimper, or has it not ended at all? And we know that wasn't that T.S. Eliot? We know that the residents of what they call the Gaza envelope, which means the area that is
right outside
along the border of
Gaza.
Gaza. They're quite upset, and they feel that the IDF ended much too soon. And by the way, the likes of Yair Lapid, not exactly a minister that I generally identify with, he said that it ended too soon. We ended too soon. Those are his words. They're being quoted extensively in the Israeli media the past few days. But I think you hit the nail on the head, and something that you said just a moment ago when you made another connection between the Temple Mount and the campaign in Gaza. And I mean, what is the problem with the Temple Mount? Why is it that Netanyahu insists on quiet, insists on the status quo? Because basically what he seems to be interested in, I mean, it's quite clear, is that he's interested in quiet. He's interested in quiet. The same thing with the police. The police are interested in nothing more than getting through the day with as least work as possible. If they come in their marauding hordes and loot and ransack the police station, okay, tomorrow's another day. If they taunt and attack the Jews and desecrate Hashem's name and everything, tomorrow's another day. The main thing is, to have peace and quiet, and that's that order, which is the order of your favorite person in the world, the Minister of Internal Security, which is basically filtering down from the highest office in the land, which is the Prime Minister. It's all just about, let's get by with this, let's have quiet.
Keeping a lid on it.
And actually, it's the same thing exactly. That's his attitude about Gaza as well. Let's buy some time. And Netanyahu was quoted as saying, well, if we want to totally uproot terror from Gaza, it would take 5 years, and God forbid it would cost hundreds of Israeli lives. So what do you want? We can't totally uproot it. In the meantime, Hamas is engaging in its psychological warfare or whatever it is, however true it is, saying, you haven't found all the tunnels, we've got more tunnels, we've got more weapons, you barely scratched the surface. And now the IDF comes out, this is another headline yesterday, comes out with a new technology that's going to cost, I don't know, billions of shekels to reveal hidden tunnels and it's a new type of Jewish startup, brilliant Israeli-created tunnel detecting software, whatever it is. We got it. We can do it because our circumstances make us simply the best there is. But it's all reactive instead of taking the bull by the horns, taking the corners of the Jew himself, taking his own corner and saying, I'm going to go with myself because God is with me, to paraphrase Zechariah. Forget about the nations. Let me go because God is with me. That's what this Parshat Ekev is all about. It's the difference between, again, and we've spoken about this so many times, the difference between just getting by and having a place and having security and having quiet and not being, no people deserves to have missiles rained on them all day. And America keeps saying, you have every right to defend yourself, but. It's a very big but. And it is, don't look at me like that. And this has to do with this whole claim of that we're being disproportional. But as someone wrote very beautifully, if 3,300 rockets were aimed at Israel the past few weeks, and those 300 rockets, each one of them killed, then would it be okay? What we're doing in Gaza? Would that be different? The world is so angry at us that not too many Jews were killed. But every single one of those rockets was supposed to kill, right? This British general or colonel officer that's been interviewed so much, he's on YouTube, I forgot his name, he's on the cover. Campbell?
Kemp, I think.
Kemp? He's on the cover of the magazine section of Makor Rishon this past weekend. He's on YouTube. He's a very big proponent of the idea of strategy. There was a quotation on the front cover of Makor Rishon, the Hebrew language newspaper. He said, "You know what? If France would be
if Britain were attacked by France,
right? If France would be raining rockets down on Britain, we would send them to hell." That was his quotation, and we wouldn't wait 1 minute like you people wait. And then anybody in the world would do that. But, now look what's going on. There's a new UN commission that's going to look into Israel, allegations of Israel's war crimes and all this stuff. And in the meantime, look at the world's reaction because we asserted ourselves, because we had the chutzpah not to die, because we had the chutzpah to be protected by Hashem. Look what's going on in the world at the same time that the past few weeks, the same weeks of the Bein HaMitzarim, between the straits, mourning for the Holy Temple, the same weeks that Israel has been fighting for its very life, you have the most horrible savagery, butchery going on in Iraq, in Africa. You have the numbers of people that are being beheaded and of women that are being sold into slavery, and of children that are being buried alive by ISIS and by Boko Haram is absolutely staggering. And you stinking world, my listeners excluded, of course, I know you love us, you stinking world, you don't have a word to say about it. You don't have a word to say, but you could absolutely care less. And again, when Obama spoke in Cairo, how many years ago was that? For Cairo University?
7 years
ago.
ago.
The one that we made that video debate, response to.
Beginning of his first term.
And he was talking about how we're in a new era now of understanding, and it's just he was just talking about this tremendous, new world, right? Ever since then, he has through his total image that he has either haphazardly or on purpose projected, and every other thing. It's not only his fault, but a lot of it is his fault. We are now witness in this world to more violence, destruction, exploitation, human trafficking, murder than ever before. But again, just the past few days, look at the numbers of, look what happened in Mosul, a city with a tradition of Christianity for a couple thousand years in northern Iraq, where they actually beheaded, crucified, drove out, murdered all the Christians. It's all over the unconventional media, because the conventional media won't even cover it. And all of these Christians that were threatened by ISIS in Iraq on pain either convert or die. Unbelievable things that are going on in the world. This minority in Iraq, where I just saw it this morning, 300 women were sold into slavery, and hundreds of children were buried in a mass grave. You know what? It's just a yawn to the world. But at the same time, we have in Rome, posters were put up reminiscent of Germany in 1933. Posters were put up in Rome, anti-Semitic posters calling for the boycott of Jewish businesses. And that's exactly how it begins. And they named their 40 shops owned by Jews in Rome that should be boycotted. Why? Because of what we're doing in Gaza. Understand? But the difference is, of course, now that what we've seen so clearly the past couple of weeks is that it has nothing to do with Israel. It, in fact, like we always said, does have to do with being Jews. And we've been talking for so long about how the new antisemitism is anti-Zionism. And all the people who talk about how we have nothing against the Jews are our best friends, it's the Zionists, that's the problem. And how so many Jews, so many liberal left-wing Jews that are self-hating bought into that because they thought that it would give them credence, and they can just still stay where they are and be a part of their vibrant society if they also will speak out against Israel. But now it's pretty clear, guess what? It's about being Jewish. It's quite clear that it's the Jews that are at fault. And we've got this going on all over the world. We've got the rabbi that was murdered in Miami visiting from Brooklyn. Oh, it might be a robbery. We don't know yet. We've got the incredible protests that are going on with their expressions of rabid Jew hatred all over the world. And the Jews, they're looking at all this. I don't know what they're saying. I know they're coming here from France. I know that this morning over 300 came from North America. But you know what? I don't know what to tell you other than this week's Torah portion is testimony to the fact that this is the place that Hashem wants his people to be in, the place that he loves. This is the place where if the Jewish people are here, the land responds and the world responds, because we have the ability to bring redemption to all humanity once we come home. And so, this is all just a reminder that this whole Torah portion that begins with Ekev, that I want to talk more about that later, but let's just start from towards the end now, where we have this unbelievable verse. And again, the land here is described as the land that Hashem swore to your forefathers, this land that he swore to give. We spoke about that last week, the difference between a promised land and a sworn land. It's a sworn land, not a promised land. And it's the land that he swore to give to your forefathers, to give them in their offerings, a land flowing with milk and honey. But you know what? Then we read in chapter 11 of this week's Torah portion in verse 10, for the land to which you come to possess it, it's not like the land of Egypt that you left, where you would plant your seed and water it on foot like a vegetable garden, meaning it's well irrigated by the Nile. But verse 11 says, but the land to which you cross over to possess it is a land of mountains and valleys. From the rain of heaven it drinks water, a land that Hashem your God seeks out. The eyes of Hashem your God are always upon it, from the beginning of the year to year's end. And these verses are so deep, because what they're talking about is the hashgacha, the providence, the divine providence that is in effect in everyday life in the land of Israel is different than the divine providence that goes on outside this land. And we saw that in a million stories that are true, a million Facebook postings and a million WhatsApp postings, and in a million families that are sitting around their Shabbat tables in the land of Israel, of their boys that came home for Shabbat, that told them the miracles that happened in this war. And this is what it means by the fact that this land drinks the water from heaven. We're not on some sort of irrigation computerized system here. It's straight from God. Everything is straight from God. And in fact, according to Masechet Ta'anit, according to Tractate Ta'anit of the Babylonian Talmud. It explains how the entire world receives the spillover of water from the land of Israel. But the main verse here, again, in addition to this idea of how it's not like the land of Egypt, it's different. It drinks rain of heaven. What does this mean? We always talk about this beautiful idea, a land that Hashem, that the Lord your God seeks out. The eyes of Hashem your God are always upon it from beginning of the year to year's end. It's just one of my favorite verses, and I always enjoy remembering how Reb Shlomo Carlebach used to explain this verse to an audience, how he used to stand up and he used to say, what does this mean? How could it be? But he's not looking at Cherry Hill, New Jersey, for example. He's not looking somewhere else. He looks everywhere. He is everywhere. And the difference is, he says to the audience, do you like coca-cola? And everybody says, of course you like coca-cola. Would you say you love coca-cola? Even if you say you love coca-cola, let's face it, if you have children, you don't look at a bottle of Coca-Cola the same way that you look at your children. I should hope not, at least. And it's a different looking. That's what it means. The eyes of Hashem your God are upon it. Yeah, he's looking everywhere. Obviously, he's looking everywhere. He's looking at Rome, he's looking at Amsterdam and Paris. He's looking everywhere, but it isn't the same looking. How do I know? Because the Bible tells me so. So there's nothing to be embarrassed about. This is the place, and we're seeing, and that's why you have the protests all over the world. That's why you have the UN, which itself should be tried for war crimes, that wants to try Israel. That's why Hamas and the PA, whoever, because again, as far as I'm concerned, they're all the same, That's why they have the audacity to say that they want to try Israel for war crimes for defending itself against their attacks. You know why? Because the jig is up. The fix is in. Israel is coming home. This is the eve of the complete redemption. And the world is reacting to that so strongly. And that's what this Torah portion is really all about. So it's all a very, very instructive period of time that we're in. It's a very healing period of time. But it's also, as usual, it's a time of choices. And I really, really hope and pray that our brethren all over the world are going to make the right choices and look at what's going on and realize that Hashem is speaking to them and that it is time to come home to take possession of the land that he swore to our forefathers, because that is the only hope and indeed the only ray of light in the entire world right now against the mad violence, the hordes that are conquering the world, raping, pillaging, murdering, is the IDF, is Israel, is the moral force of the Torah of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Temple Talk, Israel National Radio. Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk, Israel National Radio, UniversalTorah.com, the Temple Institute's own YouTube channel. Today is the 16th day of the month of Av, 5774. It's the 12th day of the month of August, 2014. And of course, as we've been saying, Av flips in the middle from days of mourning and reflection on the destruction of the two temples and many other disasters that occurred to the Jewish people throughout the centuries and millennia, to the second half, where there is a palpable feeling of rejuvenation here in the land, and the renewal of our revival of our spirits, as we see that the approach toward the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, is in the not too distant future, and we start to begin to prepare ourselves for that spiritually, which of course goes into high gear in 2 weeks in the month of Elul. We talked earlier before Rabbi, we talked a lot about what's the situation in Gaza and the situation on the Temple Mount. We made that connection, and I would like to reiterate that as a concerned citizen of this land, I think that the best response, or even more than a response, the best antidote, the best cure
for all the violence and the hatred is for Israel to be very, very takif, very, very strong about our position on the Temple Mount, and subsequently, or as a result of that, in Gaza as well. You know, the reason that Netanyahu was able to, lead this campaign was that the people were behind him. The nation was behind him solidly, and as we said, the nation would like to see more, because nobody feels it's over.
Would it be? What do you mean by more? Would it be
by
extreme?
more? I mean a more decisive victory.
But even if we continue to decimate Hamas militarily, or they're disarmed, or whatever, there's a number of issues that only extremists like ourselves would mention. One is that is actually the land of Israel. Two is that no matter what, we can't hide or deny or pretend it's going to go away the fact that they are determined to destroy every Jew. Even in the highest echelons, they're talking about buying time. They're talking about this idea, a ceasefire or a truce, but it's just a temporary lull. The real issue here is how to heal it at the roots, how to heal the situation. And at least one of the things that's come out so far that many people are admitting that they wouldn't admit before is that if this was a preview of what the two-state solution would be like, if this would be a preview of what could happen to the land of Israel as missiles are shot from the heartland, from Judea and Samaria, well, at least maybe people are kind of hoping that we could back down from that. But that's not enough either. We're not looking for quiet. We're not looking for a lull. We're looking for Israel to take its rightful place and to bring about the situation amongst humanity that it was destined for. And that's why, if we're being extreme already and talking about retaking Gaza, we should be extreme and go for the gusto and say, and the truth is, what we really have to be talking about is rebuilding the temple.
Okay, so what I'm saying, Rabbi, is that we're not extremists, you and I, because we saw that the nation was and still is behind continuing this campaign, and that really means retaking Gaza, because that's the only alternative. And therefore, ergo, it is no longer an extremist position to say, let's retake the Temple Mount, because it's one and the same evil that we're fighting, and it's one and the same good that we're pursuing. And just as it's been the people, as I started to say before, the people who have enabled our leadership, our, quote, leadership, to pursue this campaign in Gaza, and it's the people who want that campaign to continue to be pursued until it reaches its ultimate goal of completely uprooting Hamas in Gaza and returning Jewish presence to Gaza. It's the same people want a holy temple on the Temple Mount. They want the return of Jewish sovereignty to the Temple Mount. They want Jews to be able to pray in the Temple Mount. It's not extremism. Since the end of Ramadan, when Jews were not allowed to go up because of the presence of many hundreds of thousands of angry Muslims on the Temple Mount, hundreds and hundreds of Jews have gone up each day. As you mentioned earlier, there's going to be a discussion about this in the internal, what do we call it, the Internal Affairs Committee or something in the Knesset tomorrow. It's an issue that's not going away, it's only growing stronger. If our leaders were to be very clear as to our eternal connection to the Temple Mount and our reconnect to it, and the fact that prayer will be allowed for Jews and other non-Muslims on the Temple Mount, and the fact that Muslims spitting insults at Jews will not be tolerated on the Temple Mount, etc., 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 then the world will begin to get that message and begin to respect who we are and our position. And therefore, as part of this Amami, as part of this movement of the people, we have, as you all know, 2 weeks ago, we unveiled our Indiegogo Build a Third Temple campaign, which it's our goal to raise $100,000 for the purpose of producing blueprints. We've been producing blueprints, and this will help us to advance, to produce more blueprints for the building of the Holy Temple. But you can't build a Holy Temple without blueprints. It's not going to come down from the sky, and the blueprints aren't going to come down from the sky. So we need to pursue this. up to this point, we have attained a third of our goal. And we have had tremendous response, hundreds and hundreds of people. But people, we want to achieve 100% at least of our goal before the campaign ends, right before the holidays. So we're asking you to step up to the plate, and to go to our website, go to our Facebook page, check it out, check out the Indiegogo campaign, and see what you can do.
First of all, you're completely right. You mentioned that we're not extremists and that people aren't extreme and that people want the resolution and they also want the temple to be built. One thing that I think we really learned since we began this campaign is just how many Jewish people really want the temple to be rebuilt, because we were very happily surprised to see beautiful responses in the weeks, in the days leading up to the 9th of Av, many responses from many Jewish people and others who are interested in helping the Holy Temple to be built. And we saw from that this is an idea whose time has really come. People appreciated the fact that we were turning to this crowdsourcing idea. And to me, in my mind, the idea here is not even about raising a specific amount of money. It's about giving people an opportunity to feel that they are participating. When Hashem said to Moshe to tell the children of Israel back in Parshat Truma, speak to the children of Israel and take for me an offering, Hashem says the offering is for me. Every single member of Israel is supposed to participate. And so the idea here is for people to have a chance to feel that they have a direct relationship with the temple. Now, a lot of people ask, what actually has to happen in order for the temple to be built? So you know what? A lot of things have to happen on a political level, on an economic level, on the level of a revolution of values in the land of Israel. But as we've been maintaining for so long, that only becomes more and more clear as time goes by. That is happening. That is happening as we speak. Everything that we're going through as a nation every day is part of the fabric of that birth, of that upheaval that's always going on, that search for identity, that clarification. The operation in Gaza is part of that. Everything is part of that. And the Temple Institute has been so instrumental in changing the mindset of people towards the reality of the Holy Temple. So a lot of things have to happen. Those things are beginning to happen, as we've always said. There's much more of a interest and support and understanding than ever before, and it's only growing. And our job is to facilitate that, to teach that, to prepare, to be as instrumental as possible in bringing this to fruition. Now, how much would it cost to rebuild the Holy Temple? I can give you a very good estimate of $300 million. However, all that we're talking about at this point with this Indiegogo campaign is actually the blueprints that many audiences in America, several years ago, I came to America and they saw some of these blueprints firsthand for one particular section of the temple that we've already completed, which is the Chamber of Hewn Stone, which is the area of the Sanhedrin, which was created in a very innovative way, half subterraneously with full computerization, and it's really amazing. And that is one section that we completed. The total cost of the blueprints that are operative, that it's impossible to take on any building project or to register it with the proper land authorities, or to get the proper authorization, or to do anything really legally in the world to advance such a project. It's impossible without this type of paperwork. That actually would be more along the lines of between $275,000 and $300,000. But all that we began with in this campaign, which we thought was a sum that is respectable and hopefully achievable, is $100,000 in order to make some progress in the area of these blueprints. So we're a little bit more than a third of the way there. And we really hope that our listeners will go to our Facebook page, go to the Temple Institute website, go to the Indiegogo campaign, and take part in this so that Hashem's honor can be restored also. There's a lot of a lot of projects going on Indiegogo. People are opening up restaurants. People have ideas for a startup or some sort of software, or just they want to take a vacation, or whatever it is that they're raising money for. All sorts of good causes, personal causes, altruistic causes, and some of them don't do well, and some of them ask for $100,000 by a certain amount of time, and they've already made $500,000. How will it look, people, if we're asking for contributions towards making progress on the Holy Temple, and we can't raise $100,000? So think about that.
And on the opposite, if we do, what a huge message that we sent out to the world, because this is a very public campaign. We took our chances here because it's very public, it's out there, and it's only successful if it's public and if people are aware of it. So we have a lot riding on it, and the money, really is in a way the least of it, because it's really Hashem's honor, which is the most important thing here. In this
Temple
campaign.
Institute is a nonprofit organization completely dedicated towards advancements for the cause of the Holy Temple. No, we do not believe the temple is going to fall down from heaven. We do not believe that it will come about miraculously. We believe that we are responsible for fulfilling God's commandments, and that we have to find the way to do that. We do not believe that we're supposed to wait for a Messiah to come and tell us to build it or to build it himself, but rather that we are obligated to do as much as we can ourselves through our natural agency as best as we possibly can. And that's our goal. And I'll tell you how this fits in also to Parshat Ekev, because Parshat Ekev famously alludes to the relationship between ourselves and our God, and the covenant that was sworn with the forefathers through observance of the commandments, and how that is connected to the land, again, that he swore to our forefathers, the numerous warnings that are given in this Torah portion, that we should not fear the nations, that even if they are more numerous than us, that we should have confidence that when we cross the Jordan and we come to these nations that are greater or mightier than us, that Hashem is with us, and that we are to settle this land. The beginning of the parsha, why is it called Ekev? The word Ekev, Ayin Kuf Bet, and the Torah says, V'haya Ekev tishma'un et ha'mishpatim ha'ele ushmartem v'asitem otam. If it will be, when is how it's translated here, but it's not accurate. It will be on account of, or translated when, however you translate it, Ekev, when you hearken to these ordinances. But the word Ekev has a number of meanings, and it's actually the same formation of the word that means the heel, H-E-E-L, of the foot. So there's some sort of tradition here, because of course there's a strong interplay between the oral tradition and the actual verses of the Torah itself. The oral tradition also comes down to us from Sinai, as we've spoken about consistently for so many years. What does it mean, Ekev, when or on account of you hearkening? It's a reference to certain commandments that people decide that they're not worth as much as other commandments. They just made this decision arbitrarily. You look at it and you think, like, this isn't so hard to do, this isn't worth so much, but you don't know how much God reckons every commandment. You don't know how much he thinks one thing is worth more than another. So Ekev means even those commandments that you have a tendency to crush under the heel, to trample upon, even if you listen to those commandments. And so, people learning this and studying all the commentaries and understanding that there's this connection with the heel might think it must be referring to something that doesn't cost very much to do, or that isn't very hard to do. So, I take it for granted it certainly isn't as great as not murdering someone or doing something that's very, very hard to do. Well, for some people it is hard not to murder somebody. But that little commandment, giving that little charity there, or honoring my mother, it's not such a big deal. And those are the mitzvot that are being alluded to here, that even those mitzvot that you might think you could trample on them. But actually, I think on a deeper level, there are other mitzvot that are trampled on today that people are absolutely taking for granted. And they have actually invented on some sort of subconscious level a very elaborate system of denial. The mitzvot today that are trampled on are basically, by many Jews, they trample on the mitzvah of living in Eretz Israel. because they say, well, what's the difference? As long as you have a livelihood anywhere, you can worship Hashem, keep the Torah, keep Shabbat, and live like a Jew. So obviously that's for, some bygone era, or God forbid, if Mashiach comes, God forbid, and he forces me to come to Israel and close down my lucrative business, then I'll come to Israel. So that's one mitzvah that's trampled upon. But the other mitzvah of the set of the two main mitzvot that are trampled upon is, of course, all of the mitzvot relating to the Holy Temple, of which there are actually 203 of the 613 commandments that the Jews are so excited about, the fact that they have 613 commandments, but 202 of them are completely dependent on the Holy Temple. And about these mitzvot, most Jews say, well, you know what, we can't do them now, so what do you want from me? They're just not relevant. When Messiah comes, or when the temple comes down from heaven, or whatever, then we can talk about it. But now it's antiquated, and it's something a really interesting course of study, but it isn't real at all. And I don't think you get a better trampling than saying that a whole group of mitzvot of the Torah are not even relevant. That's called trampling under the heel. And our goal is to rekindle those commandments, to reactivate this entire way of life that is the original way of life, that we never received a cancellation order for, that Hashem never antiquated. Every word of the Torah portions that we are studying now, where Moshe is standing before his death, reviewing the entire Torah, these words of prophecy flowing from his mouth, talking about the future, talking about the exiles, reviewing for his beloved children everything before they go in, and warning them time and time again, when you go in there, don't be influenced by the nations. Don't think that there's any form. Don't become materialized, like we spoke about last week in the video. Don't become materialistic. Don't think that that's the goal. The goal is for you to live in the land of Israel, not like the nations are living, but for you to become a spiritual role model for the world. Don't be afraid of the nations. Drive them out. Don't cut a deal with them of any sort whatsoever. And he's saying all of these things with tremendous conviction, tremendous concern for the future generations. And he's warning us about the importance, the preciousness of the land that was sworn to our forefathers. And he's saying, don't take anything for granted. This is how this Torah portion is starting out, saying, don't trample the mitzvot. It's not up to you to decide what's important, what's not important. This Torah portion also contains such a beautiful description, verses that describe physically what the land of Israel is all about, and spiritually the benefits of living here, and how different it is from every other place in the world, and how Moshe weaves this description in with his oral review of the history of the past 40 years in the desert, and the promise of his beloved Israel now going into the land, and the purpose of them coming into the land. What did he say last week when he was begging Hashem Vet Chanan? He was imploring Hashem 515 times to let me come in and see the good mountain and Lebanon. Right? The whole purpose, we talked about that last week, the whole purpose of coming into the land of Israel is for Israel to come and build the Holy Temple. That is what it's all about. And here you have these crazy people that are coming to you already for years, more than 10 years, in this weekly radio program. You can visit them in Jerusalem. They have very high-profile social media. And these people at Temple Institute, they are trying to build the temple. What are we going to do about those people? What are we going to do? Are we going to ignore them? Are we going to let them just blather on incessantly week after week? Or are we going to consider that maybe there is something here? Because after all, we're not reinterpreting everything. We're not giving you something that doesn't exist. We're not making something up. We're not reading anything into between the lines. We're just reminding ourselves what the purpose of Jew is in the world, what the goal of humanity is, what the Torah tells us, what all of these verses tell us. It's about being real. It's about the covenants. It's about the land. It's about the Holy Temple. That's what this whole month is all about. That's what the campaign is all about. We want to make progress because the only answer to Hamas, the only answer to the fact that these people are bent on destroying us, there can't be a two-state solution because there's only one state for the Jewish people. The only answer to this elusive peace and quiet that we're searching for is not to settle for peace and quiet, but not to settle for mediocrity, not to settle for survival, but to aim our sights on a much loftier goal, which is the sanctification of God's name in the world, the restoration of his honor, and basically, if you don't mind my saying, the redemption of all mankind through the indwelling of the Shekhinah in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, That's what we're doing here. We're not trying to sell you a used car. We're trying to build the temple.
God's eyes are upon the land from the beginning to the end. And Rabbi, these past 2 months, we have witnessed, and everyone in Israel has witnessed, this amazing sense of unity, uplifting spirit, and the feeling that God's Shekhinah, that His presence really is here in the land of Israel, so close you can touch it. And you know what? That was a result of tragedy and a result of war. Imagine, if it were the result not for the duration of a war, but all the time as a result of a beautiful effort of building the Holy Temple and of renewing the service in the Holy Temple. And I think that now that the people from all different aspects of the people of Israel, not just this group or that group, now they've had a personal taste of it, I think we're going to discover that this year the desire of the people toward returning to the Temple Mount, building the Holy Temple, is going to increase tenfold, 1,000-fold, and God willing, we will also be able to present these new blueprints to show the world and ourselves that we're really serious about this, rebuilding the Holy Temple. Thanks for being with us. Temple